live on Staten Island. It's the Staten Island Comedy Show with your host, Nevin Cummings.
Welcome to the Staten Island Comedy Show. We're going to have a great show for you tonight, so stay tuned. It's a virtual show. We have comedians perform their stand-up set on location, and you will see them right here on the Staten Island Comedy Show. Now I would like to introduce to you something different on the show. We're going to review a book called Did It on a Dare and ask questions to the author of the book, Al Martin. This book will inspire you to wake up and realize the only opinion that matters is yours. This book tells a story of the rise of one of the most influential comedy club owners, Al Martin. Hi, Al. What is the title of the book, and how long did it take you to write it?
Hi, Nevin. Great question. The book's name is Did It on a Dare, How I Built a Comedy Empire in 30 Short Years. 30 short being, I guess, the funny part about it. It is a great story about my life building a comedy business. That wasn't the original intention. It just sort of wound up that way. As to when I started the book, I guess I've been starting it for the last 10 years, starting to write down notes, write down different things that I wanted to put in it. But I never got a chance to really put it together because every time I would do that, I'd get distracted by business or family issues that would come up. Running 2 comedy clubs and a cabaret room definitely take up a lot of my time. But actually what did it for me was COVID-19 and the subsequent shutdown of my businesses. They were shut down by the city and state. They're still closed, and it really gave me an opportunity to not only write the book, but to promote the book and put all the stories together. So if anything did come out of the whole COVID experience, it was the fact that I got a chance to write the book.
You're right. Sometimes good things come out of bad things. Al, who inspired you to write the book?
Well, great question, Nevin. Who inspired me to write the book? Well, I would actually say, if I had to guess, it would have been my wife. She was tired of me always talking about it. She was tired of me always mentioning that I wanted to write my life story. And finally, one day she said, listen, just go ahead and do it, especially now during COVID. You have all the time in the world. So basically, I took the stories that I had been compiling for many years, stories about my interaction with comedians who eventually became pretty famous, and put it all pen to paper, and then got an editor, and the editor went to work on it, and that really is what was my inspiration. Finally, my wife telling me to get off my rear end and get to work on it, especially there was no excuse due to COVID.
That's awesome. You have a great spouse, and it's great that she helps you. What was the dare that got you in comedy?
Great question, Nevin. It happened around 1989. I was dating a girl who was doing open mics. She was an open mic comedian, just starting out. And as we all are at that level, she was very excited about doing stand-up comedy. And she said to me, I'm going to be performing at this little comedy club in Brooklyn, which turned out to be Pip's Comedy Club. I'm going to be doing an open mic, and would you mind watching me? So I said, sure, not a problem. I went to the open mic with her, and as women are apt to do, she asked me, "Oh, how was it?" You know, they ask you, "How is their outfit? How does their makeup look? How was their cooking?" And then she asked me, "How was her comedy?" And I said to her, "It was fine. It was good." You know, and she asked me subsequently 30 times how it was, and I finally got so fed up. I just said, "You know what? You sucked. You were absolutely horrible. It was the worst thing I've ever watched. Okay, you happy?" That then led to about a 15-minute fight where she was throwing insults at me and I was throwing insults at her. You know, as we used to call it back in the day when I was kids, we were ranking on each other, and it got a little vicious, as those things are apt to do. And then she finally said to me, "Well, if you think you're so funny, why don't you go out and do some stand-up comedy?" And then the next thing I know, I wound up on stage the following week at Pip's Comedy Club, and that was truly quite an experience.
Wow, that was an interesting way to start your career. What advice does this book give to aspiring comedians?
The kind of advice I offer in this book to comedians, I think, is very unique. It will give the perspective of a club owner and a person that has managed clubs, and will give a comic an opportunity to know some of the thought process that goes on. You know, one of the things I've always considered very important is for a comic to be humble and for a comic to be showing humility. Don't walk into a room asking or demanding things. Always try to be as humble and as easygoing as possible. If I have two comedians, one of them is 100% funny and one of them is 80% funny, I'd rather book the 80% funny as long as he has or she has less baggage. So the less baggage you present to a club owner, the better. Don't get in the way. Don't come in 60 seconds before your spot time. Leave enough time to get there early enough, study the audience, get a vibe for the room, talk to the MC. Don't get to the club a minute before your set and then disappear after checking in. If you see the bartenders busy making drinks, don't demand your Diet Coke. Don't demand to go on stage and then when it's your turn to go on, say, "Oh, I got to go to the bathroom." These are the kinds of small pieces of information. I'll also, in the book, I also delve into a lot of my golden rules of comedy. Things you can do as a comedian to make your life easier. How to get precious stage time. The various methods of getting stage time. I think the Al Martin golden rules in the book will be invaluable.
That's great advice, Al. Please share please share with the audience one of the funny stories that is in the book. I believe there's one about Boca Raton, Florida.
You know, Nevin, there are so many funny stories or interesting stories in the book, but I'm glad you brought up the incident in Boca Raton. It probably put that club on the map. The New York Comedy Club in Boca Raton was a club that used to be known as Boca Nuts, and I purchased it from an owner down there with a partner. And we were, in the beginning, as any business, struggling a little bit. And we were lucky enough to book Artie Lang, who had started in an improv comedy troupe at my New York Comedy Club in Manhattan in the very early 1990s. So we were able to get Artie Lang for a weekend. He was hot as can be. He was the new guy on board on the Howard Stern show. For lack of a better word, he was the third seat behind Howard and Robin Givens. And Artie came there for 5 shows, sold them all out, and he was with another act called the Reverend Bob Levy. And Bob Levy would bring along another Howard Stern, for lack of a better word, whack packer by the name of Beetlejuice, a short little guy who was a pretty funny person in his own right, not necessarily as a stand-up, but used to do some very funny stuff. So anyway, The routine that Bob and Beetlejuice were famous for were putting cream cheese on a woman's butt and having Beetlejuice lick off, for lack of a better word, lick off the whipped cream or the cheese. So they picked someone in the audience, a female volunteered, while her boyfriend was in the bathroom. The boyfriend comes out of the bathroom, sees his woman on stage in front of 350 strangers, bent over with cream cheese on her butt being eaten by Beetlejuice. When the show ended, this guy got up. I happened to have my eyes focused on him, and he went absolutely insane and made a dash for the dressing room. And there was a free-for-all in the dressing room with everybody involved fighting, which spilled out onto the street. And my brilliant partner at the time, a CPA, said, you know, that guy hasn't paid his bill. In the middle of all this, all he's worried about is the bill. So he goes running to the guy to try to get the bill. The guy is so still in a steamed road rage mentality. He backs up his car. My partner stands in front of him. This guy runs my partner over where he lands on the hood of the car, and then he starts doing complete 360 turns in the parking lot with my partner madly holding on for dear life. And while this is going on, my partner's toupee is flapping in the wind and finally blows off and lands like 2 feet away from me. Finally, my partner got thrown off the car, couldn't hold on anymore, gets up, dusts himself off, he's a little bloodied, walks over to me and he goes, oh, I guess my toupee isn't a secret anymore. I said, a secret? Everybody's been laughing at that thing for years. It was so bad. And what was ironic is, in his day job, my partner not only was an accountant, but he also owned a part of a hair replacement business, like a hair club for men. So here's a guy with a hair club for men business with the worst toupee in the world. He just plops it back on his head and goes about his business the rest of the day. And then Artie talked about that whole thing on Stern that Monday, and it just put us on the map.
That's a funny story. How would you describe the book overall?
It's an interesting question, Nevin, because when I wrote the book, I had two possibilities. One, do I write a book for the general public, or do I write a book like an instructional type book for comedians on how to get stage time, how to write material, things of that nature? So I decided to do a book that sort of combined both elements. So one of the really good things for comics in the book is a lot of my golden rules of comedy, which I think have been very useful to myself, and the feedback I get from comics is it's been very useful in their careers as well. So also stuff like how to get stage time, things to do at a comedy club, to make yourself well known, how to get more work on the road, things of that nature. So for a comedian standpoint, it's very useful. Now, to tie in the general audience, or shall we say civilians that are not comedians, I included a lot of very interesting stories with celebrities, people like Artie Lang and Sarah Silverman and Lisa Lampanelli and Kevin Hart and people of that nature. So I love the combination of the book, giving inside stories, giving advice to comedians, and keeping the general public interested. And the reviews have just been terrific on Amazon, and people have really enjoyed the book. There's a screenplay being written about it. People are discussing a docuseries based on it. So there's been a lot of really good stuff happening, and I look forward to be discussing more of it at a time in the future.
Al, this is the final question. That awesome book cover, who designed it and who came up with the idea?
Well, that's a funny question, Nevin, because we had a couple of different options originally for how we were going to do the front cover. So initially, the front cover was going to be what the back cover is now, which is a serious photo of me, for lack of a better word, a pensive shot of me at the dinner table with my family. And then we decided to switch it to something a little funnier, since it is a book about my career in stand-up comedy. So Drew Tessier, who produces a great comedy festival at my club and a monthly gay show at the Broadway Comedy Club, and is a great and very talented graphic artist, came up with a design. He also wound up designing the cover for my wife's soon-to-be released book as well. So he came up with something that incorporated my my signature cigar, which I usually smoke, as well as comedy, the microphone head, and my picture. And it came out, and a lot of people loved it, and that's really how it got started.
Thank you, Al, very much. That was great information for all, but especially up-and-coming comedians. That's what this show is all about, helping comedians. Thank you, Al, for being part of the show and sharing your knowledge of the comedy world. Now I would like to introduce a segment we call Joking Around with Fred Rubino.
Fred Rubino here. The Center for Disease Control came out today and says the coronavirus can be transferred through close contact. This is the biggest scientific way to stop it. That's every virus. We know that. How do we stop from getting it? That's what we want to know. That's your job. Don't get too close. How close? I gotta know how close. You understand? If people got a mask on, that's not enough. If I'm under somebody, if they rub against me, do I got it? I gotta know. See, I don't know what close is. So I'm gonna tell you the best way not to catch coronavirus. Easy. Go to the store, get a broom. Okay? This is how far people should be from you. That's it. Until there's no more virus, this is it. People come near you, go, get away. Keep away from me. Carry a broom. Everybody carry a broom. You see a guy with a broom, you know he doesn't want you near him. Get a broom. Everybody you get too close, you get wallooped with the broom. Coronavirus, you want it not to spread? Everybody carry a broom. Old school. It'll go away overnight. Get out of here. Stay away from me.
That was awesome, Fred. Very funny. Our next comedian is Michael Friedman. He says he's from his mother. Ha ha ha. Actually, he's from Rockaway, Queens, now living on Long Island. He has been doing comedy for 4 years. Michael says he loves to make people laugh, especially about his miseries. You can find him on Instagram at Mikey Comedy. That's at Mikey Comedy. Facebook, Michael Friedman. Our next comedian, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Friedman.
Their New Year's resolution in play? Nobody. Me neither. Every year I'm going to lose weight. This year I decided I'm going to do this Nutrisystem diet. So these 4 boxes show up at my front door. And I look at it and I open one up the next day and I eat the whole contents. Because those portions are small. So there went that diet. Anyway, so every year I go to the doctor and I seem to have 2 problems. High blood pressure and enlarged prostate. So I told him if he checked my prostate first, my pressure will be good. As I'm getting up there in age, other things aren't getting up there. You know, so he's giving me a prescription for this Viagra. And I go back to him, I'm like, Doc, these pills, they're not working. He's like, you have a picture of your wife? Right here. I'm tripling your dose. Yeah, but seriously, I'm married almost 23 years and I have a little pet name for my wife. It's Tamara. It's everything this woman's doing Tamara. I just wish at the altar she would have said Tamara. Yeah, she's the laziest woman in my neighborhood. You know how she calls the kids to dinner? Kids, daddy's home, everybody get in the car. Yeah, that's what I gotta live with. Yeah, 22 years of marriage, and the only thing this woman's blown was the engine in her car. True story. True. Yeah. 22 years, the only thing she's cleaned was my bank account. You know, finally she was going to help out and she was going to get a job. She got an interview for a seasonal position at Costco. Too bad she wanted holidays off. Yeah, the story of my life. Yeah, being married to her takes a certain type of blood. Be positive. Too bad I'm O negative. Yeah. Oh, what else can I tell you about my wife? The cooking. Oh, the best. That's why we have to eat out every night. I like a rare steak. She gave me shoe leather. She told me she was in a rush, so it should have been raw. Right? You know, for her birthday, she's like, Mike, I'm in the mood for surf and turf. So I run in the kitchen and I make her a tuna and a bologna sandwich. You know, this is Long Island, and every year these kids are selling these entertainment books, right? In your neighborhood, $25, really good deal, right? They neglect to tell you it fits perfectly in the pocket of your car door all year round. One year after Christmas, my wife goes to me, honey, we got 5 days to use this coupon. So next day I load up the car and head out east. And would you believe Splish Splash was closed?
That was great, Michael. Our next comedian is Art Schill. He started out in Brooklyn, New York, moved to Long Island, where he has lived since the age of 12. He has been doing comedy since April 28, 2017. What made Art get into comedy was one day he was watching America's Got Talent, saw some comics and thought, I can do that. He has always made people laugh. He is on Facebook, and you can always pull up the Newsday article about him by Googling Art Schill, Newsday. Our next comedian, Art Schill, ladies and gentlemen.
You know all those things they promised us as we were getting older, oh, the golden years. Let me tell you right now, they were lying. I mean, let me give you an example. My wife went through a physical. The doctor said to her, you're in your 60s, you have some medical conditions. You still have intercourse? She said, wait a minute, I'll be right back. She ran to the waiting room door, she yelled out, Arnie, do we still have intercourse? Everybody's staring at me. He said, how many times do I have to tell you? We have Blue Cross. Telling me that in the morning of their 50th wedding anniversary, they're having breakfast, and his wife said to him, gee, you know, 50 years ago, we were eating breakfast on our honeymoon. He said, yeah, but the difference was we were sitting there naked. So with a smile on her face, she said to him, well, let's do that again. So they took off their PJs and continued to eat. And she looked at me, she said, you know, even after all these years, honey, this still makes my nipples hot. And I said, I don't doubt that. One of them is in your oatmeal. And the other one's in your coffee. For our 50th anniversary, I took my wife out for a nice dinner. And somebody told me years ago, if you want to get a reservation at a popular restaurant, tell me you're a doctor. I've been doing that for years, and it really does work. Except one night, a man started choking in order to keep our reservation and had to perform a tracheotomy. I was reading the problems that states are having now with the OBGT laws and who can use what bathrooms. And I realized that's going to give rise to a whole new job title. Restroom pecker checkers. And then I said, if that's true, we should update that old tongue twister to Peter Piper checked a bunch of different peckers, a bunch of different peckers did Peter Piper check. Peter Piper checked a bunch of different peckers, how many different peckers did Peter Piper check? And that reminds me, by the way, it's been 40 years since Bruce Jenner won the Olympic gold. So to commemorate that, Wheaties is putting his face back on the new cereal, and now advertises as now without nuts.
That was great, Art. That's the end of the show. I just wanted to remind you that you can see previous episodes of the Staten Island Comedy Show on my YouTube channel, Nevin Cummings Comedy. And please subscribe. Also, check out my Facebook page, Nevin Cummings Comedy. See you on the next show. Bye.